Hello, good afternoon. We are going to start our afternoon session, which topic is the Republic of Korea as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, innovating for peace and prosperity. This session is jointly organized by the Jeju Peace Institute, Korea Academic Council on the United Nations System, and the Graduate School of International and Area Studies, Hanguk University of Foreign Studies, located in Seoul. My name is Daewon On, and I will act as the moderator of this session. I'm currently working as the professor and the dean of the Graduate School of International and Area Studies, Hanguk University of Foreign Studies. It is my great pleasure and honor to act as the moderator of this timely, relevant, and significant session. Here we have 6 distinguished experts, officials, and leaders in international cooperation and multilateral arrangement projects. And I would like to briefly introduce their names and affiliations. Firstly, Dr. Tang Sheng Yao. He's Food and Agriculture Organization representative and head of the FAO Partnership Liaison Office in Korea. And secondly, Dr. James Hinan, representative of the United Nations Human Rights Office in Seoul. And thirdly, Dr. Kim Se-ryo. She is a representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Seoul. And the fourth presenter is Dr. Im Hyun-mook, the director of the Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding. And regarding these 4 presentations, we have 2 distinguished discussants. The first one is Ambassador Lee Kyung-chul. Ambassador Lee is a High Representative for the United Nations Security Council Affairs, affiliated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. And secondly, Professor Lee Shin-hwa. Professor Lee is a professor belonging to the Department of Political Science and International Relations, and at the same time, she is serving as the director of the Institute for Interdisciplinary Unification Studies at the Goryeo University, and she also served as the Human Rights Ambassador of South Korea's MOFA in the previous years. So in this session, we have 4 presentations and 2 discussions. And so it may be that there could be some positive of time regarding the serious situation facing the entire multinational arrangements centered around the United Nations and many other United Nations affiliated international organizations and the entire world as a whole. So we have some strict limitation in the terms of the length of time allowed for each presenter and discussant. So the 4 presenters would have 15 minutes each for their presentations, and the discussants would have 10 minutes time in commenting and in making certain proposals and the ideas regarding these related topics. And the first presentation will be made by Dr. Tang Sheng Yao on the topic that is it is about the introduction of the Food and Agriculture Organization and its role and mission to transform international cooperation to promote sustainable agri-food systems, and also some role that would be expected for South Korea. Please.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ng. To start with, I would like to know first, who were here among the participants in the house last year? Oh, there is one. It's good. No, among the participants. It's very good. At least we have one. And I had prepared the presentation excellently by my colleagues, actually. I think this can be shared anytime, as this is already available, so you can always have a copy of it. And at the same time, I would like to say nowadays everything can be done in hybrid. So I would like to do it today in hybrid format. I'm sitting here speaking for a few words, but I would like to stand there to present my points. Is that allowed? Yes. Okay, that's very good. 감사합니다. First of all, please allow me to extend my appreciation. For this one presentation, as I said, I will skip it because one person was here last year. This one is similar to last year's presentation, but I can assure you with the latest, very, very latest information. So it's the newest, all updated. So please, if you want, you can always have a copy of it. Or otherwise, you can send me an email and we can provide you more information. This is done by my colleagues. And what I'm now speaking, it's some points I would like to share with you. So I drafted these points overnight, and hopefully it can be useful. This is the second time to speak at the session of Republic of Korea as a long-permanent member of the UN Security Council, innovating for peace and prosperity, co-organized by the Korea Academic Council under UN system and the Graduate School of International and Area Studies at Hanok University of Foreign Studies. I know Hanok University is also very popular, famous, and in my office we have some colleagues from the university. We all know the Republic of Korea was elected as a long permanent member of the UNSC for the years 2024 to 2025 term. This marks the third time that the RK has been elected as a long permanent member, following its previous terms in 1996, 97, and 2013, 2014. The RK as a country that overcame the ravage of war, hunger, and poverty has played and will continue to play an important role in world peace and prosperity, including the right to food and agri-food systems transformation. I would like to draw your attention that the food security in the world is not optimistic currently, and there are food crises. in a number of places, countries. According to the latest FAO report of the State of Food Insecurity and Nutrition 2024, 733 million people in the year of 2023 suffered from hunger, malnutrition, and undernutrition. About 1 out of 11 globally, and 1 out of 5 in Africa. 2.33 billion people experienced moderate or severe food insecurity in 2023. Over 864 million suffered from severe food insecurity. Sometimes they went an entire day or even longer without eating anything. I experienced this when I was a child, but not for 24 hours, but for 16 hours, 20 hours, that's normal. May I also remind you that the majority of the undernourished people in the world are located in this region, in Asia and the Pacific. Food insecurity affects children and disabled people everywhere. Children and disabled people are the most vulnerable people. They are usually most affected by hunger, malnutrition, and undernutrition. There are different jargons for this: hunger, poverty, malnutrition, and undernutrition. To achieve the 2030 agenda, including SDGs 1 and 2, it's only less than 5 years left for us. We will not achieve all SDG goals if we do business as usual. We need to do business in an innovative way. We start from ourselves. FAO is mandated to address global hunger and food security, achieving food security for all to make sure people have regular access to enough, adequate, high-quality food for healthy and active life. To achieve food security, among many other factors, availability, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability are the key for food security. And this should be always ensured for all people at all times. Food security and agri-food systems transformation is the heart of FAO's mandate. It's especially relevant in contexts where hunger and malnutrition threaten the survival and dignity of hundreds of millions of people in the world. To this end, since 2020, FAO has initiated a new vision and aspiration of 4 betters: better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind, which is designed to address challenges and concerns related to food security, nutrition, environment, and livelihood, and to support the transformation of more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems transformation. Under the 4 betters, FAO works closely with its members, focusing on the following for the developing countries: promoting policy dialogue, providing technical assistance and strategy, increasing national food production and strengthening national food security, improving livelihoods and nutritional status of the population, developing capacity, reducing disaster risk, and improving natural resources management. I have 6 minutes left. I hope I can finish. I want to leave some time for my brothers and sisters on the stage. So in one word, FAO is on board a new journey together with its members innovatively. Dear participants, as you are fully aware, the world and the international community are facing lots of challenges: economic slowdown, conflicts, climate change, and extreme weathers, ODA cuts, to name a few. FAO is a technical agency, also the center of excellence in world food and agriculture. FAO does provide emergency aid assistance to control plant and animal disease and pests, and disaster rehabilitation, such as locust, flying armyworm, avian influenza, African swine fever, drought, and floods. Though FAO is not providing humanitarian assistance directly to people for their consumption directly, FAO is feeling the impact of those challenges, particularly by the ODA cuts. The ROK is an important country in the world and currently serves as a long-permanent member of the UNSC. In food and agriculture, ROK has very good examples to successfully address hunger and poverty since the 1970s. FAO has enjoyed a very good partnership and cooperation with ROK since ROK joined FAO in 1949. Over the past 7 decades, we witnessed ROK's shift from a poverty and developing country to a developed country, from an assistant recipient to a donor. There are so many things ROK can share to benefit developing countries in terms of food and agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and rural development. To name a few, Samao Windong. I think everyone knows Samao Windong. The key is the spirit of the Samao Windong. Afforestation. Since 1950s, forest coverage has increased from 11% to 63% now. Smart farm and digital agriculture, IUU fishing and agriculture, many more. I'd like to touch upon about the 3 pillars of my office, but it seems the time is not good enough. So finally, I would like to thank everyone here for your listening and patience. FAO stands ready to work with all partners, governments, private sectors, civil societies, and NGOs to support practical, need-based solutions that can make difference in people's lives. Only when we will all work together for peace, prosperity, solidarity, and multilateralism. There are quite a few sessions devoted for multilateralism, last year's forum as well as this year's forum. I had the pleasure to participate and listen. We can only successfully address those challenges. Food security and nutrition can be achieved for all. No one will be hungry. No child will go to bed with a hungry, noisy stomach. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Tang, for your excellent presentation. As he mentioned, food and agriculture issues have been emerging as one of critical international security problems and challenges intertwined with such disruptive phenomena and effects like climate change and also demographic, the explosive the trends in many parts of the world. So it should be dealt with more seriously by the United Nations Security Council and the many of the United Nations based institutional entities. And the next presentation will be by Dr. James Hinan on the subject, the Republic of Korea as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, an office of High Commissioner for Human Rights view. Please.
Thank you, Professor Owen, and thank you for giving me a doctorate. I don't have a doctorate. I'm not a doctor. There's too many doctors on the stage here tonight. So first of all, thanks to the organisers for inviting me to speak. I'm here speaking for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights globally. My day job is focused solely on DPRK, but luckily those two things come together because ROK in the Security Council means that DPRK is always on the agenda. The human rights in the Security Council is a long discussion. It's a contentious discussion. There's a sense that human rights doesn't belong in the Security Council, and this has become even stronger since the creation of the Human Rights Council back in 2006. There's a sense amongst many member states that human rights are in Geneva and peace and security are in New York. But as you know, and this is the position of the High Commissioner, many of the threats to regional and global peace and security that we deal with and that the Council deals with or should deal with arise from chronic human rights situations. And the aftermath of conflict also provides us with generally a pretty bleak human rights context. The ROK is already a member of the Security Council. You're more than halfway through your current term, so we're talking about things that have happened, but also maybe for the future, for the fourth term. The ROK is prominent in the UN human rights system, and I make this point first because that's pretty important for credibility. If you're going to get up in the Council and start talking about human rights, you've got to have credibility to talk about human rights, and ROK has that credibility in terms of the treaties you've ratified, in terms of your reporting under the human rights system. You've been a member of the Human Rights Council 5 times. You've been president of the Council. You have specific issues in the Council that ROK focuses on: democracy, rule of law, emerging technologies, human rights and local government. I was at the Human Rights Cities Forum in Gwangju last week before. You have a standing invitation to special procedures. You have a number of very highly qualified Korean mandate holders. Young Hee Lee, Young Hee was the first one, but also Hong Song-Phil and Baek Tae-eung, who now teaches in Hawaii. Excellent first-class experts, and of course you do your UPR. Everyone has to do their UPR, so that's not such an achievement, maybe. When we move to the Human Rights Council itself, it's interesting because the ROK made specific pledges during its candidacy around human rights, and human rights particularly in conflict, obviously, protection of civilians and so forth. You have a presidency. You had a presidency last year. You have another one coming up soon. Your ICC focal point, I'll come back to that in a minute, but that's very important in the context of the Security Council. And you have a number of specific thematic priorities. ROK has a number of specific thematic priorities which all intersect with human rights. I've listed many of them on the screen there. I won't go through them all, but they are all at base in one way or another human rights issues. So where do we go from here? I just want to mention a few ideas rather than a lecture on ROK and the Security Council, because people here know that much better than I do. But just to go through some ideas about where from here. Again, you're already more than halfway through your tenure, so this is for now, but also for the future. Bridge country. My colleague Shen Yao mentioned that already, and it's brought up again and again, but it's hard to overestimate how important that is. Classically, from a donor recipient to a donor country, from a recipient country to donor country, but more importantly, in the area of human rights, ROK has a level of credibility and trust amongst a large group of member states compared to some other countries. Let me put it that way. Because of your history, where you come from, where you've been, what part of the world you come from, what your traditions are, you have a lot more credibility on human rights issues than some other member states. The second thing is about the security aspects of your Human Rights Council priorities. So in the Human Rights Council, ROK has priorities, and one of them is technology. This has only become more important, even since you've been on the Security Council. We could talk about, well, certainly the human rights aspects of AI. ROK hosted the REAIM conference here last year, which explored this this very difficult topic. But it's both sides. It's AI, it is technology that can both be a danger to human rights but also can be positive for human rights. Sometimes we think that things are inexorably positive. They're not. And for example, in DPRK now has 4G mobile phones. 4G is meant to be used to improve the situation of the population. But in DPRK, we see it is, in some ways, farmers can now get weather forecasts and so forth, but it is also used to put cameras on roads to track people's movement. So it goes both ways, and because ROK is such a powerhouse in this area, that's an area where human rights and your interactions in the Security Council can be even more important. I put up there making the link between security and human rights, the case of DPRK. As I said earlier at the beginning, this link between human rights and security is still a very fraught topic. There are some people who say it doesn't exist at all, and others who are saying, well, clearly it exists. It's not simple. If you look at every conflict around the world today, if you walk into the room and you start talking about the human rights problems underpinning that conflict, people get very nervous very quickly. So the position of the office is that this link needs to be made, but it's very, very difficult in practice and in the current context of the Security Council. ROK has been a member of the Security Council during the Security Council's possibly one of the most difficult times in the Council's history, and I think the country has navigated it well. But this link between human rights and peace and security, we, for example, working on DPRK, we draw the link every day. We say, listen, things that are happening in DPRK, particularly around things like forced labour, are clearly linked to the militarisation of the country. But you can't just isolate it on one country. If you're going to talk about peace and security and human rights, you've got to talk about it in respect of every context. And I think that's probably where the ROK has some credibility to talk. The law of armed conflict and international human rights law. Depressingly, today, we see both IHL and IHRL, International Human Rights Law, being breached on a daily basis in front of our eyes. We also see the re-emergence of this idea that wars can be conducted without rules, or if there are rules, then there's special rules and human rights don't apply. That, we'd hoped, would have been consigned to history 20 years ago, but it's coming back again today. And because of ROK's background, I think, and your priorities in the Human Rights Council, you have a strategic advantage in making that point for a rules-based international order, which is what the country subscribes to. International criminal law. ROK is a huge supporter of international criminal law, both financially of the ICC and provision of judges to the ICC, Judge Song, of course, and the current Judge Pek Ki-bong. This is an area where there's also tension in the Security Council, because a lot of the international criminal law justice relies on referrals from the Security Council. It will for DPRK, it will for aggression. I'll come to that in a minute. So I think ROK and Japan are both countries that have both the credibility and the interest in supporting international criminal law in the Council. The crime of aggression. There's a new crime of aggression. I guess everyone knows that. It's now really been something that can be looked into by the ICC since 2018. The crime of aggression is important because the crime of aggression, it hasn't been totally universally ratified, but the idea of the crime of aggression is that if you ratify the amendment to the Rome Statute on the crime of aggression, you will be saying we will not be the aggressor, because the crime of aggression can be prosecuted against states that have ratified the crime. And we think that in this part of the world, as tensions mount in Northeast Asia, it would be helpful to lower temperature, it would be helpful for peace and security for countries to ratify the crime of aggression, including ROK, to send the message that if there's a problem here, it won't be us. We won't be the aggressor in this context. And I think that's something that can also infuse in ROK's discussions in the Security Council. The final thing is human rights culture. I think what struck me when I didn't know this country at all before I came here, to be honest, but what struck me about ROK is you have a very strong human rights culture, a culture that's born of your history. We see it every day in the streets. I live in Gwanghwamun in Seoul, and I have the noise of human rights in my ear every weekend, every Saturday. It's a very valuable thing that you have. You have also, from your history, a very strong sense of transitional justice. And you have a strong sense of the value of civil society. I think all of those things could have some reinforcement in the Security Council, particularly, and I've put that on the screen, particularly civil society space. We see civil society more squeezed now than ever in the UN, but also more broadly. And I know that civil society are looking to ROK to be leaders on that issue. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Do Hinan, for your excellent presentation. The human rights institutions, like the United Nations affiliated and many other NGOs and the civil society organizations, it seems to me that they are now being suffocated because of the dwindled resources and also the changed the policy preferences and also priorities of the government and the many other domestic and the international entities. And the gaps are now widening between the need to properly address these tumultuous the problems and the actual level of capacities of international institutions and the non-governmental the entities in the current period. So it's a very hard time, I think, a crisis situation for most human rights and other multilateral institutional entities in the current period. And the third presentation will be made by Ms. Kim Se-ryo. She is a representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Korea. And the topic of her presentation is UNHCR ROK partnership and the ROK's role for the protection of refugees, human rights, climate change, and some other critical global issues and challenges.
Thank you very much, Professor On, and I would like to also thank the organizers for having UNHCR at this session. And I'm quite grateful. I am coming after James, as he has provided a lot of backdrop, although slightly different issues, but the issues of refugees and globally forcibly displaced people are happening at with the backdrop of human rights. Just very briefly, I wanted to introduce you for those who are not familiar with the UN Refugee Agency. We are mandated by the General Assembly, and our High Commissioner reports to the General Assembly's Third Committee on an annual basis. We are going to be celebrating in these very difficult times 75th birthday this year. Unfortunately, when UNHCR was established, we were given a 3-year mandate, but we have continued for 75 years. And the number of population that's on the screen you see is 122 million people. However, the numbers that will be released in a few weeks' time in June is showing that it will be well over 130 million. So the conflicts continue, the persecution continues, and the situation of forcibly displaced people is getting more. People are in more despair rather than improving the situations. Who do we serve? We serve, as a whole, the UN Refugee Agency calls the population the forcibly displaced people, which includes refugees, asylum seekers, returnees. These are voluntarily returned people who have returned to their homes, people who do not have any nationality, stateless people, and then internally displaced people. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the number as of 2024 is 122 million people. What is, I think, a fact that I do want to share with participants today is that a fact that people are not aware, especially in Korea, is that 76% of the refugees actually live in low and middle income countries, and 70% of the globally the forcibly displaced people live in the neighboring countries. I think there is a misinformation and misconception that the refugees are actually in advanced and developed countries, but they actually are hosted mostly by the neighboring countries. The number is, so right now, 1 in every 69 people, so it's 1.5% of the global population is forcibly displaced. And this is, compared to a decade ago, the number has doubled. So in terms of refugees, this is a grave, it boils down to human rights violations. These people are not leaving the country at their own will. They're forced to leave. And they're forced to leave because of conflict. They're forced to leave because of torture or persecution and many different reasons. And on top of that, the climate change has been also a driver of displacement, and the economic and social impact of the economic crisis and recently the COVID crisis, all of this compounding into a situation where people are not able to live in their own countries. At the root of it all, as I mentioned earlier, there are human rights violations, and UNHCR is making efforts to protect their rights and to provide basic services as much as possible. This is just a map to illustrate the climate vulnerability. Climate change is not a direct. It does not directly correlates to forcibly displacement. However, where people live and the displaced populations live overlap with the climate vulnerability, and about 90 million people live in countries with extreme climate conditions. So what I wanted to share through this slide is 3 angles, how we look at it. As I mentioned, it's a driver of displacement. And the second thing is the climate change really hits displaced people very, very hard. I think people here might be familiar that climate change does impact vulnerable population, and it hit the hardest. And as with the forcibly displaced people, they don't have access to basic services. The shelter might not be conducive to the environment. So they are quite exposed to the vulnerabilities. And the third thing I wanted to highlight is the fact that because of climate change, even when peace is restored and people want to return, because of drought, floods, or different conditions of their own homeland, refugees might not be able to return. This is just a slide to illustrate the partnership between Korea and UNHCR, which started in 1979, with Korea supporting Indo-Chinese refugee crisis at the time. It has expanded quite a bit, and now we are receiving the official development assistance from Korea, and we're quite grateful for the comments and contributions Korea is making at the Security Council, which I will be talking about slightly later. Let me skip that. So just maybe going to the main topic of today, which is Korea as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. I think a couple of things that I do want to highlight is the fact that Korea has been consistently highlighting humanitarian dimensions of conflicts. So this is our High Commissioner, Felipe Grandi, who regularly briefs the Security Council on the global trends, as well as whenever there is a big crisis, he's asked to come and brief the Security Council. And this is because the displaced situation and peace and security are closely interlinked. And we have been observing that Korea, as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, has been consistently highlighting the humanitarian dimension of conflicts. And we're quite grateful for that. The other thing is that Korea has been contributing in terms of highlighting the needs of people at the Security Council. And this is quite important because humanitarian action alone is not enough to resolve the situation of the forcibly displaced population and other vulnerable populations. But there has to be a solution that is brought to the table, and that's not that UN agencies are not able to bring that solution, but member states are. And Korea has been playing a really important role in that area. What we do look forward to as Korea continues with this term as a non-permanent member of the Council is that Korea will be voicing more on the peace-building process, because peace-building is really contributes to the prevention of conflict and directly linked to the forcibly displaced situations. Just wanted to also highlight the climate change. We were asked to highlight by the organizers on the role of climate change in the UNSC framework. But what I wanted to note is that I already explained the interlinkages between climate change and forcibly displaced situations. And it is quite important that the discussions of climate is brought into the Security Council and the the global framework, as it is the climate situations exacerbates the human security situation of the populations who are living in already very vulnerable regions. So we hope that Korea, as a non-permanent member, is able to bring this issue closer to the Security Council and promoting climate resilience and adaptation. So thank you. I just wanted to share this last slide and the last photo, just mentioning that the refugees and asylum seekers and stateless people are not just numbers. They do want to be part of the solution, and they do not want to be just receiving benefits from and support from countries or donations, but they really want to be part of the solution. And I think through the Korea and UNHCR partnership, we're going to be able to bring some benefits to the solutions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. And we have the last presentation remain. And the last one is about the global citizenship first initiative and some proposals for the promotion of global common values based on strengthened and reinvigorated United Nations and the entire UN system. Please.
Thank you, Professor On. I appreciate the opportunity to present this proposal, which is quite simple and very easy to understand, as you see in the screen. Like Mr. Tang, I was here last year at this very same session organized by the Korea Association for UN Studies. Last year, I talked about the importance of peace education in today's circumstances, and when I was invited again to this session, I thought very hard to come up with I didn't want to repeat the same thing again, so I try very hard to think about something new. So let's see. Today many leaders of many countries saying my country first. Trump said America first when he was running for the presidency 8 years ago. And today, following his footsteps, many political leaders in many countries are saying the same slogan, my country first. This morning, as you many Korean people here know very well, today is the early voting day for the presidential election. And this morning, on my way to the office, I heard the election campaign coming from the truck. The recorded message was saying, I will make this country great again. The same content as the Trump's make America great again, MAGA. So I was quite surprised. So anyway, first let me talk about where we are and where we are heading. First of all, in my view, there are very important two factors affecting our world today. One is the dismantling of the Yalta system by its protagonists. As you know, the Yalta system is created and managed by the P5, the nuclear power permanent members of the UN Security Council. And this system is characterized by the non-aggression between nuclear power countries. I mean, the war between great powers prevented by this system, but the war in Ukraine is showing that this Yalta system of controlling war between or by the great powers is being dismantled. And the second factor is discontent with globalization and the rise of nationalism. Globalization has been going on since over the last more than 3 decades, and now there are many winners, and also at the same time there are many losers. So there's a rise of discontent with globalization and the rise of nationalism. So we need to ask this question, where we are now and where we are heading. Do we have are we seeing a new world order emerging, or what? Many scholars and many commentators are saying that there are many similarities between the interwar period and today. As we see in the screen, during the interwar period, there were severe economic crisis, and because of those economic crises, there was a rise of fascist movements, and those movements scapegoated the minority groups, especially Jews, and there was German annexation of parts of Czechoslovakia, endorsed by the Munich Agreement in 1938. And today, we are seeing many similar things. The world economy is disturbed by the pandemic, and today by trade war and tariffs. And as I said, after the more than 3 decades of globalization, we are seeing now the rise of anti-global populists in many parts of the world. And many far-right political parties scapegoating immigrants and transgender people, and there may be possible agreement on Russian annexation of parts of Ukraine. And we have to learn the important lessons of the interwar period. As I said, economic crisis breeds extremism, distrust in democratic institutions, and support for authoritarian rule. And this same phenomenon is repeated again today. And excessive nationalism fuels hatred, dehumanization of certain groups, and violent attacks on those groups. During the interwar period, Jews were the main target. Nowadays, immigrants and transgender people. Propaganda and ideological manipulation delude people. And today also, especially the algorithms and artificial intelligence manipulate and delude our thinking and the information, and or even some conspiracy theories. And especially since we are here talking about the United Nations, we have to mention this weak international institutions, which means the League of Nations at the time failed to negotiate and maintain peace. So let's think about the meanings of peace. Of course, when we speak about peace, the first thing which comes to our mind is the absence of war. But not only that, we have to also think of peace as a process in which dialogue, mutual understanding, and cooperation are pursued. And peace is, of course, multi-level and multi-dimensional processes that are interlinked, and so a comprehensive approach is needed. And on the other hand, what is global citizenship? My proposal is the Global Citizenship First initiative. So we have to understand what is global citizenship. There are many radical cosmopolitan thinkers who argue that there must be world government in order to solve the critical problems that we are facing now. But unlike those radical thinkers, in UNESCO's thinking, global citizenship is a sense of belonging to a common humanity. It's not an argument for world government. It is a perspective or attitude or mindset emphasizing the interconnectedness or interdependence among ourselves. So here is the Global Citizenship First initiative rather than My Country First doctrine. Global Citizenship First initiative aims to counter the rise of hatred and antagonism. Main actors will be governments, civil society, and of course the United Nations. And main actions may be UN summit meetings to advocate global citizenship, and also UN declaration and plan of action on global citizenship first initiative may be adopted by the UN General Assembly. I'm not sure about the UN Security Council. Anyway, this initiative could also foster dialogue, mutual understanding, and cooperation. And of course, one main action will be education, awareness raising, and also the critical literacy on information, especially in view of artificial intelligence. And global campaign for reinforcing the United Nations, which is weakening in today's very unfortunate situation. Expected results. First, this initiative could contribute to mobilizing public opinion to press the government to work for peace through conciliation, not confrontation. Advancing rule-based, non-discriminatory, free, fair, open, inclusive, equitable, and transparent multilateral trade system. This is not my wording. This is the wording from the ASEAN plus 3 financial minister and central bank government meeting held in May. Increasing support for people marginalized by globalization and migration, like immigrants or the poor people. More robust policy and programs on global citizenship education and critical literacy and information, and lastly, more support for multilateralism and the United Nations. Let me finish by citing the Eisenhower's the chances for peace speech. No people on earth can be held as a people to be an enemy, for all humanity shares the common hunger for peace and fellowship and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lim, for keeping the time and your excellent presentation. And now it's time for responses and discussions from the two distinguished discussions. And for the contribution of the four speakers, we have secured roughly about more than 5 minutes, and as the privilege of the moderator's capacity, I would like to consume 1 or 2 minutes before starting the discussions. That is, as we have discussed, the current period is a very difficult crisis situation. And the current United Nations system is traced back to almost the 80 years the history since the end of the Second World War, and even during the wartime. And it is still important. The United Nations Security Council, the entire UN system, and the UN-based global multilateral institutional governance system. These are crucial, and these cannot be easily replaced by any other system of governance in the foreseeable future. But at the same time, the current situations and challenges are so complex, severe, and decisive. So they need to carry out some major comprehensive reforms to better address the current and the future challenges and problems. So it may be time for us to have some grand plans for the discussion on the future of global order, and it also fits with the current more or less the anarchical global geopolitical situation, and also the tremendous the impact expected from the innovations and the revolutionary development of the AI and the other state of the art technologies and the industries. So the two discussants will give some ideas about the future direction of the reform of the current United Nations Security Council, the entire UN system, and some grand vision for the future of global governance. Please, Ambassador Lee, at first.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me thank the Kakuns, the Academic Council, and also the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies Graduate School for organizing this event. I was here last year as keynote speaker, and I'm very happy to be back this year with the same kind of meeting. It's always good to see academia organizing this kind of session. And also, I heard with great interest the presentations from 4 prominent speakers. The issues they dealt with, the food security, human rights, refugees, humanitarian conditions, the education, are not necessarily the traditional kind of security issues, as we know. But whenever we talk about, deal with the armed conflicts, traditional kind of security threat, those issues, we discuss those issues always in a holistic way, because for any solution, it requires dealing with such challenges as well, at the same time seeking political solutions. And I should also recognize the presence of Ambassador France, based in Seoul, Ambassador Philippe Bertou. Actually, we worked together in New York when we were on the Security Council last time. I was in New York language political coordinator, 13-14 Security Council team, and he was a French political coordinator. His advantage is he's permanent member, not having to be elected. And he knows better than I do anything about Security Council. And also I recognize the presence of a judge, Lee Jae-hyung, but the ITLOS, the International, what is it, Tribunal of Law of the Sea. He's a former MOFA colleague, but he's now the judge of the tribunal. I think they should be here, this side, rather than that side, maybe next time. And it was raised during the presentations that the people say that the UN as a whole and the Security Council in particular is in crisis. Everyone talks about the crisis and even irrelevance of the UN Security Council-backed collective security system. Maybe true, and compared to what we could do in the past decades, we have difficulties in making anything done in the Security Council. It may have much to do with what's going on in Ukraine for the past 3 or so years, but not just that. And in many parts of the world, we are seeing a growing number and more serious kind of conflicts all around the world without being dealt with properly through what we have in the UN-backed collective security system. But maybe a source of hope or some optimism is that still, legally speaking and politically speaking, the Security Council is the only organ in international relations empowered to make binding decisions on all member states, overriding their sovereignty. It's there. It's up to the international community to what extent they are ready, the international community is ready to utilize or to rely on. But these days, they are a kind of decreasing trend, perhaps, in looking to what we have in the UN collective security system. But the thing is that I don't think there can be any full replacement for the Security Council or UN collective security system anytime soon. Maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe there should be some repair or reform, as someone spoke, but not because it's based on it's not the UN system came into being not easily, because it was based on the humankind's experience of 2 world wars and huge loss of human lives and destructions, and because of that there should be some reform to the system, but not full replacement anytime soon. And what we are doing in the Security Council, this is the 3rd time. I was involved in the 2nd time, and still I'm kind of covering what we do in the Security Council from Seoul, but I travel to New York from time to time. But we have people there, and just perhaps two things about human rights and other issues. Let me focus on when we had presidencies of Security Council. We had the Security Council presidency last June, and we are having another presidency in coming September. In June last year, we talked about human rights situation in DPRK, in addition to the non-preparation issue of DPRK. And in September, we are doing some preliminary working level preparations, also consulting with some members, some other members of Security Council. But we don't know yet for sure what we will be dealing with, but we are in preparation for that. And we have a bit over 7 months to go until the finishing line of our current term of Security Council. But the thing, based on my experience, is that even after finishing the Security Council term, what we did during the Security Council term helps in conducting our global diplomacy, because the expertise and networks and information we have accumulated during 2-year term of Security Council will help as a basis for our diplomacy globally, internationally. I'll stop here and Professor Lee will follow me.
Okay, Ambassador Lee, thank you very much for your really relevant and very practical assessment and proposals. And lastly, the second discussion will be made by Professor Ishinwa. Please.
Thank you very much. Well, I also want to echo my gratitude to the President Park Jae-jeok Park of Korean K-Queens, who just made this meeting regularized. This is going to be the 5th year for K-Queens become a usual suspect for this important conferences. I'm glad to see it as a former president of K-Queens. And I also would like to thank for the Dean Ondaewon of 한국외국어대학교 to make this conference happens. Well, since probably the Ambassador Lee saved 3 minutes, 3 extra minutes for me, probably I'll talk 12 minutes. Well, this session is talking about UN Security Council and also the Republic of Korea as a non-permanent member of the organizations, and we are looking for the innovating approach for peace and prosperity. Although the Director Lim Hyun-muk touched upon security issue to some extent, that was followed by Ambassador Lee, I feel obliged to mention about the peace part of it, since other representatives making a great contributions to development, food, and human and humanitarian issues. So having said that, well, we obviously now is a witness not only geopolitical instability, but also compound systematic crisis. As we all know, the great power rivalry, particularly between US and China, and also the protracted warfare in Ukraine and then now Gaza, that just brought about renewed conflict in the Middle East, and also rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait. And then I do believe the North Korea is also becoming more dangerous and also more empowered by the blessing with their close military ties with Russia. And I'm afraid if the North Korea become more strong nuclear power that is somehow tolerated by Russia and China, and also if the Trump is trying to making some summit with the Kim Jong-un in return for not focusing on denuclearization, that is the objective not for Korea but also for the international community, but just to concede the goal for arms reduction. I think that is not only definitely for crossing South Korea's security red line, but also for international security challenges. Well, having said that, in theory, UN Security Council stands as the central mechanism for collective peace and security, but in practice, it is increasingly viewed as an institution incapable of functioning. Having said that, there was a time when we talk about the limitation of a UN Security Council, particularly in relations to UN peacekeeping. We said, well, the glasses was half full or half empty. I don't know whether you believe the half of the achievement is the full or empty, but now I think we are compelled to ask, is there any water left at all? Having said that, the very relevance of the Security Council is under existential threat. Cases such as Syria, Ukraine, Gaza, to name a few, have revealed the depth of the Council's dysfunction, and in its place, now kind of the fragmented unilateral forums or cooperative entities is on the rise. But I'm not sure whether those unilateral mechanism is good enough or sufficient enough to deal with the global security as a whole. Adding to this kind of uncertainty and collapse is the institutional hostility from within the system itself. The second Trump administration, as we all know, has initiated sweeping budgetary cuts and delegitimization campaigns targeting USAID, NED, and UN-affiliated agencies, than where we have in here as well. This is not merely a fiscal contraction, but it is a structural attack on the liberal international architecture, I believe. United Nations is now confronted not only by external threat, but by internal sabotage from its founding members. Having said that, in the interest of time, I will just throw out the three quick strategic suggestions for Republic of Korea, not as only non-permanent members. It only left 6 months plus. As Ambassador Lee has mentioned, what we can do beyond as a non-permanent member status. Well, from number one is from participants to agenda setters. Korea must shift from rule followers to rule shaper, proposing new linkages across climate, technology, humanitarian security. By breaking siloed security thinking, Korea pioneer agenda innovation at a time when the Council is bereft of new direction. The second, reinforcing multilateralism through civilian or civic partnership. With multilateralism under siege Korea should embed its diplomacy within human rights, humanitarian issue, and development frameworks in cooperation with institutions like UNHCR, FAO, UNESCO. This kind of apolitical anchoring can be rebuilt credibility where geopolitics has failed. Third is sustained engagement through strategic positioning and normative leadership. Securing a non-permanent seat on the Security Council is becoming increasingly competitive. Probably we have to wait another 10, if not 20 years. Countries such as Germany, Japan, and others have maintained visibility and influence through long-term investment in peace-building mechanism, alignment of development assistance, and investment in human rights with multilateral objectives and leadership in normative agenda like women, peace, security framework. Drawing from these approaches, Korea should strengthen its presence not only during its tenure but also between terms by institutionalizing contributions to peace building, advancing climate resilience, and promoting democratic governance. Leveraging flexible, issue-based coalition and unilateral platform will further enhance Korea's capacity to shape agendas and build enduring influence. Having said that, I have a few questions to all our panelists. The first, for Representative Seria Kim. I'm so glad you mentioned about climate displacement and security as a UN Security Council agenda, or probably a UNHCR agenda. So I was wondering how we can make that kind of nexus as a UN Security Council agenda. Somebody who's been long working on environmental refugee issues, I'm so glad UNHCR finally making those climate displacements issue as a central podium. So hopefully we can talk about that issues. For the James Heenan, well, as an ambassador, the former ambassador, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you so much to give you great help while I was in tenure. But I know you are not supposed to talk about North Korean issue alone here, but looks like you are the only representative who can speak North Korean issue in this podium. So that I would like to tell you what I was talking about for all those difficult time now, how we can make North Korea human rights issue as one of the main agenda for international organization in this kind of a difficult time period. That means what mechanism can Korea use to institutionalize North Korean human rights discussion within hopefully UN Security Council deliberations, because we had a very hard time to bring that back to the Security Council now, but I'm afraid it will go away from this year. And then third, for our representative Cheng Tang, I'm always enjoyed your beautiful presentation based on statistics and so on, and I really enjoyed today as well. But I think how can Korea expand, like what you mentioned about FAO's work with Korea on smart agriculture, right, as a model. Then how can Korea expand this collaboration into a new peace-building, agriculture, security framework if we can do it? So can this become a model for future UN Security Council discourse on sustainable conflict prevention? So that's I would like to ask you. And for the Director Lim, the Global Citizenship First initiative, I think it's a very timely response to the rising global polarization. And what you mentioned about the thing is remind me of a Kinderberger trap, because there's no leaders try to give a global supply the goods, right? So the linkage between education and hard security remains very weak. Then what practical strategies exist for integrating peace education, youth empowerment, and civic resilience into the Security Council's preventive agenda? Can Korea institutionalize this breach within the UN system? So it's one last remark I would like to mention is, UN Security Council was never meant to be perfect, but it was never meant to be irrelevant either. We are no longer debating whether the glass is half full or half empty. We must now ask whether there is any water in the vessel at all, and if not, who will refill that?
This is Korea's moment, not just to participate alone, but to recalibrate, not merely to respond to crises, but to design frameworks that preempt them. As a middle power with legitimate agility, historical memory, and high-tech capability, Korea can offer what the system lacks most: trust, innovation, and purposes. So in a Security Council adrift, some country like Korea can be an anchor. In a system in doubt, Korea can be an architect. I hope this challenge can turn out to be an opportunity for South Korea. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Professor Lee, for your really the excellent the comments, questions, and the suggestions. And we have roughly about 10 minutes time, and because it's the last session today, so we can have some discussion time. So now floor is open, and should I collect a few questions from the audience? So those who have questions or comments, please raise your hand and also tell your name and the affiliation, please. Questions? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Hae-young Park, and I am part of the Youth Secretariat at the Jeju Forum. As a young person from Korea, I found your remarks truly engaging and thought-provoking. You mentioned, first, I want to ask you, Ms. Seryok Kim, the representative of UNHCR Korea. Earlier, you mentioned that as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, Korea hopes to play a more active role in advocating for refugee issues, especially in concerning the impact of climate change on displaced populations. At the same time, however, there seems to be significant public resistance and misunderstanding toward refugees within Korean society, reflecting global trends. In this context, what kinds of efforts do you believe are necessary for Korean society to better recognize the seriousness of the refugee issue and move towards greater solidarity with the international community? And from UNHCR's perspective,
sorry,
yes.
Because of the paucity of time, I would like to ask you condense your questions. So, any other question? Sorry about that. Other questions, comments? No further questions. How about Ambassador Bertu? That is, I think, maybe.
Yes, thank you very much. No, very quick comment. Thank you very much for the great presentations and the points. It has been indeed a pleasure to interact almost on a daily basis with Ambassador Lee when we were in the Security Council. I think, frankly, that the issue of the Security Council, glass half full, glass half empty. I think the Security Council is still, very alive and kicking. There is, still great activity in the Council. The Council adopts, regularly text declarations, has debates, and much more than it was in the past when it was created, actually, during the Cold War. So even though the golden age is behind us for now, there's still activity in the Council. And there are some issues on which the Council has been able to deliver results. I'm thinking, for example, of Colombia. So we should not despair of it. And it is very important to keep in mind that the Council, and yesterday I was also participating to, and I was a speaker at a discussion regarding the UN system in general. But basically, the crux of the issue is that the UN is what the member states want to do with it. And the Council is an institution that can only work if all its members, and specifically the permanent members, really play play by the rule. And the issue we have is that maybe the Yalta system is crumbling, but there, it is not something that happens mysteriously. It's because one permanent member has violated the charter and has decided to invade a country. I mean, that is the reason why we have so many difficulties in the Council. You can add to that, of course, some difficult questions on the Middle East and so on. But there are some responsibilities there, and we need to keep that in mind. The role of the non-permanent members is crucial because they have their network. They can build bridges. They can find new initiatives. They can harness the asks of the rest of the membership of the UN membership in general, and they can also fuel the frustration of the rest of the membership, so that the Council needs to be more active and to produce more results. But again, it is really a question of will from the member states in the Council, and specifically from the permanent members of the Council. Regarding reform, I think there's a fine line between the need for reform and we, France is in favor of an evolution of the Council in its two capacities, members, permanent and non-permanent. We have put forward also an initiative on the self-restraint of the right of veto in cases of mass crimes, voluntary pledge not to use veto. We would like the other permanent members to join this pledge. So there are ideas for reform, but the fine line is that whilst pushing for reform of the Council and of the UN in general, we must keep in mind that the basic principles of the UN Charter are and remain perfectly valid, and we have to be careful that reform is not a word that is used basically to change these principles. They are valid, they are our moral compass, and we need to defend them together. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ambassador. I agree with you on that. The future should be based on the previous, accumulated experiences, foundations, and the current the conditions and the situations. But it should be readjusted by some more creative ideas and also broader consensus to making the efforts and the arrangements by the minimizing the aspects of exclusivity and the alienation of the majority of the peoples, states, and societies in the world, and also it should fit with the general trends or mega trends of the time. Some of them already, to some extent, quite clear, but some others still they are raising great uncertainties, and that may need our greater and broader discussions and collaborations. And it's impossible for us to allow all the speakers to respond to the questions and the comments. So do anybody else want to make up the final response?
We could all say 1 minute each.
1 minute each, okay. We have only 50 seconds. So so is it okay to finish? And then we cannot deal with all the important and relevant questions and themes at the same time. But it is quite valuable, and I appreciate that we have the opportunity to discuss all these the issues, and it will turn out to be the very important point for further discussions and elaborations in the coming future. Thank you for all your great presentations, comments, and also the questions on the floor. Thank you.